We good? Thank you so much. All right, we have our panelists up here. So we have Doug with AT&T, Chris Nyhuis with Vigilant, George Just with Threatblockr, and then Michael Sy with eSentire. So thank you so much for everybody taking time out of your busy schedules, sticking it out till the end, and then it's us between you and alcohol, which somebody who understands that very, very well. We do bourbon and security events sometimes, and they're a lot of fun. I think I have about 370 bottles of bourbon. So if you don't like my security presentation, we'll talk a little bit about bourbon. So people always ask, how did you get into this industry? So I've been half my life now, 25 years in this industry, and I got my degree in theology and my minor in biblical studies, and I said, you know what I should do with that? I should go bartend. So I got a job bartending, and I had a lot of time on my hands, so I was like, you know what, I should go coach high school football too. So then I got a job to coach at Kansas University and UCLA and for football, and at that point someone came into my bar and said, you know, you should be in sales. And I thought, that's terrible to say to somebody who wants to be a pastor. All I thought about, that's, you know, do I come across that way? So put a resume together, didn't even know what that was, and they took 1,000 resumes, interviewed 200. My resume said aspiring pastor, bartender, football coach, and I got a job with Arceo Communications back in the data center world. So amazing journey. So what's great about this panel is I actually get to share with one of my mentors, Chris Nyhuis. About 10 years ago, the Target breach happened, and so Chris told me what happened with Target, how they were compromised through their HVAC, their air conditioning unit, and I said, that's it, I'm hooked. So for the last 10 years, I've been focused on cybersecurity. So with that being said, what I want to do is let the panelists each introduce themselves. Tell who you are, tell a little bit about your superpower for your organization, and then we'll get on.
Yes, start left to right. Chris? Cool. So I'm Chris Nyhuis. I'm the CEO of Vigilant. We're right here in Cincinnati. Vigilant's born and raised here, actually. We decided to stay here because this city made us really who we are culturally, and we've now grown into a global organization that's represented by this great city. And I've been with Vigilant since the founding. I was one of the founding members 15 years ago. Our superpower is we create forensic sources of truth inside an organization. Most security is based off of guessing and events. And so we drive forensic analysis and forensic decisions that empower organizations not only to secure themselves, but also to be more resilient in the other things they do across the organization. And we are kind of unique in that we provide unlimited IR. And so our clients never have to pay for forensic incidents ever. So.
Doug?
Awesome. Doug Arceo, AT&T. Been on AT&T for about a year and a half now. Prior to that, I've spent positions at Dell, EMC, CDW, and in a variety of positions there as well. I guess when I look at from AT&T, we're kind of the best kept secret in cybersecurity. From what I'm finding out talking to customers is they didn't know we had a cybersecurity division. Those of you who've known AT&T for a long time, you know, we are a new breed of AT&T cybersecurity with the AT&T in front of it. We're nimble, we're fast. Our superpower, a couple things. One is we're the world's second largest MSSP. And you wouldn't know that if you talk to customers. So that's why we're heavily investing in the channel. So we thank the partners here today. And I'm a dedicated resource for your partner here today. So we're doubling down investing in the channel, and thanks for having me.
Great. George?
Hey, George Just, CRO at Threatblockr. I've been in networking and security, the SASE business, and you know, edge protection and things like that. I've been around since, you know, Cisco had 70 employees or something, and we carried pagers and phone cards, right? A couple of you probably remember those days. So I've been in the business a long time. Threatblockr is the name is exactly what we do. We block threats. The superpower is we make your network disappear from a threat actor, right? Your network stops answering them. Your network doesn't let them in. And just eliminating that from being a cause of concern for a lot of these other folks here just increases the fidelity of what they can do, because they're actually, you know, working on something that is truly really bad, or really novel or something like that, and we just eliminate that stuff that we all know about and don't have an effective way to block.
Thank you. Michael.
Cool. My name is Mike Shee, not he, but she, for the record book. I'm a solutions engineer. I support the channel. Work for a company called eSentire. eSentire is a Canadian-based company. I'm out of Atlanta, GA, and support the channel nationally. And really, our superpower is to make sure you do not have a business disrupting event. So we monitor your infrastructure, and if we see something go bump in the night, we're going to respond. We're going to eliminate the threat, and then notify you.
So I work for a company called Telarus. Telarus is a technology distributor. We have 400 providers in the portfolio, 70 of which are cybersecurity. I'm in charge of the cybersecurity practice. And so we align with ATC, and what we do is we help make sure that you have best-of-breed technology for everything that you're looking to do. I get hit up by 80 to 90 different suppliers every single month, and I turn down 99%. I take one, because we only want the absolute best technology to help represent clients in this room. So a lot of clients will come to us and say, you know, we have this technology and this technology, and our job is to make sure that we can mature your cybersecurity posture, help give you better technology, and we align with ATC to do that. So global criminal activity topped $8.6 trillion last year. So I live in Southern California, and the drug cartel is near me. They did $500 billion. But yet, if you watch the news, you end up seeing more about drugs than you do about cybersecurity. It just is sadly the point. But we're talking 16x, and you're going to see some interesting statistics here. So what I want to talk about first is cyber insurance. 75% of organizations actually have cyber insurance. But right now, it's getting much more difficult. Why? Well, Lloyd's of London had 1.6 million breaches happened in 2021. The average policy is $1 million-ish. What's 1.6 million times $1 million? A lot of money. So Lloyd's of London, first company to ever offer cyber insurance. Now they're not doing it. So what you're seeing is more requirements coming out, policies and premiums are going up. So, you know, panelists, let's start with cyber insurance. Are you seeing a big uptick in requests for that? And can your organizations help fulfill a lot of those requirements through one provider?
I can take one quick swing at it. So our largest customer is actually AIG Cyber Insurance. So what they are doing is to say, hey, you want a policy that's great. If you don't have a basic cybersecurity structure, you're either going to pay through the nose, and we're not going to pay out when you have an event, or we're going to make sure you have some basic cybersecurity. So they install solutions like ours as part of that policy delivery. And then in the same sense, you know, there's other cyber insurers that are pulling out of the business or limiting things that they'll pay out to such an extent where it's really becoming not a great solution. It's you know, it's remediation at best.
Yeah, so from our perspective, what we're seeing is that from a cyber insurance is they're adding more requirements in than they had before. Before it might have been just a checkbox, do you have this, 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 and this? Now they're doing the validation of that. And one of the new aspects we're seeing is, do you have a dark web monitoring solution to ensure to go out there and look and see, is your data on the dark web, right? Are there usernames and passwords on the dark web? And making that part of that so that you can then address that, ensure that you're bringing cybersecurity training back to your individuals, you're rotating passwords, you're doing all of the basics, blocking and tackling to ensure that you're not compromised.
You want to go first?
Yeah, you know, really insurance in any form is about risk. You want to reduce and mitigate risk. So these cybersecurity insurance companies, you know, they really don't want to pay out. So what they're doing now is they're making sure certain controls are in place in order to underwrite a new policy, renew a policy. These controls need to be in place. So that's what they're really enforcing, just like other compliance standards, GDPR, PCI. Now cybersecurity insurance is a compliance mandate. So you need certain controls in place. So it's great news for us up here because we can help provide those controls so you can renew your policy or get underwritten for a policy.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, you know, so we worked with the cyber industry for a long time. One of the interesting things that's happening as of April 1st, really funny day. I just spoke about this about 20 minutes ago. But the cyber industry has determined that most of their loss and their risk is in attacks that are associated to a foreign nation that is adverse to the United States, so nation state. So what we're seeing in the cyber industry is that cyber insurance organizations are actually removing the underwriting policy for all nation state attacks as of April 1st. So Lloyd's of London's pulling out of it, which means the cyber insurance that's left over is protecting from things they don't normally see a lot of loss from. So you'll still be paying for insurance, but with not having the actual protection, because most incidents, like when we've worked incident responses the last couple of years, are actually associated to nation state attacks. And if they're not, the insurance industry actually has a rider in there that says that they get to choose whether or not it was a nation state or not. So the thing for what we always have told organizations throughout the years is don't rely on other people for your own risk mitigation, right? Unless they're willing to get in the arena with you. And one of the things we've done since literally the day we started our business, which has made us have to do things the right way and do security well and not try to minimize security for the sake of margin, is we have always promised our clients with a guarantee that doesn't exist anywhere else in the industry that we found, which is basically if you're a client of ours, you have unlimited incident response forensics. So that's the large majority of the cost of an incident. We've had clients that are major healthcare providers that have actually gotten rid of their insurance altogether because they have enough cash to cover the ancillary aspects, and they've saved significant amounts of cash from it. So we don't recommend completely getting out of cyber. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, we have built technology that can find threats so fast that we're willing to put our risk right there with you, and we'll continue to build them because our risk is right there with you.
Chris, you just said one thing that I just want to make sure nobody missed.
Mm-hmm.
You said nation state actors.
Yeah.
And I from talking to businesses all the time, they don't think they're a target.
Yeah. They don't,
right?
Yeah, they
nation
don't.
state targets nation state? They're targeting us,
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
everybody.
Right.
And that's the big piece that I think,
Yeah.
we sometimes
Yeah.
forget about.
Yeah, and really, insurance is for residual risk. You're going to do everything you can to reduce the risk. Insurance is for that residual risk. But read the fine print of the policy to
Right,
your point,
yeah,
Chris.
yeah,
Read
yeah.
the fine print. Because if even after a breach, if you don't take the proper steps, they're not going to pay out.
Yeah, because to your point, the incident responders that show up are not working for you. They're working for the insurance agency. So they're there really to figure out who didn't do what they were supposed to do, the threat actors or you. And so, just like any insurance adjuster, they're to figure out, did you cause the accident or not? And if you did, they don't pay out, right?
There's a lot more criteria in play now, and then the policies are paying out different. So you used to get $1 million policy, prove that you were compromised, you got $1 million. Now it's chunked. It's $200 for ransomware, $200 for network intrusion. So that $1 million policy doesn't pay out that well. So if you need help with that, we can absolutely help. Then you have South Carolina as the first state to actually say that if you get ransomware and you pay, it's considered an act of treason. And if other states start to follow, that's actually scary. So big topic. I want to continue on so we get to more topics. So you heard Nick and the panelists earlier talk about SD-WAN and how we have to protect this remote hybrid workforce now. So everybody's working remote, right? We used to build this castle, put walls around the castle, a moat around the walls, and you just try to keep bad people out. And then COVID happened, and now everybody works remote, right? We're working from a hotel, a Starbucks, an airport. And so how do you protect against these remote users? So I want to throw some stats out there. First off, there's 150 billion spam emails that go out every single day. There's 18 million malicious websites that if employees click on them, they could actually compromise your organization in any given week. There's 82% of all breaches right now are human error. But yet, how much time do we spend on security awareness training? They just did a statistic that said your employees are spending an average of 49 minutes per year doing security awareness training. Yet 82% of all breaches are caused by our employees. So what are you guys doing to help organizations with security awareness training? And if they have something in place today, is there other options that they can do?
Yeah, so I'll take that first. So, at AT&T, we rely on a couple of partners that we provide security awareness training for, right? Depends how in-depth you want it to be. But clearly, when you look at the statistics, you want to make sure that everyone is compliant by going through the training. So the partners that we rely on have tool sets that will come back and say, hey, Doug's only 80%. He didn't finish these 5 or 6 modules. And then ongoing phishing simulations to make sure that people identify or can identify a phishing email, right? I mean, who isn't waiting for that UPS package from Amazon, right? We're all waiting for that link. It must be a link where it is. This must be the email that's going to tell me where exactly it is, right? So awareness training, and then that just goes into their daily lives then too, right? From that perspective. So that's one of the things that we're doing to help ensure that the customers are safe.
Yeah, I was going to say, we in the room really are the weakest link. I call it the human firewall. We have technologies in place, but we're the weakest link. And they know how to pull on your heartstrings. I'm in cybersecurity. I got an email about changing my compensation. I was like, damn, what's going on now?
Yeah.
Click.
Yeah.
I'm off the training. So, we think we're good. We think we're good. We think we're smart. We're really not. As an old carpenter said, measure twice, cut once, right? Look at things twice. If it's in question, pick up the phone, call, get a hold. Don't click on links.
Yeah, like we just talked about, the insurance industry knows that most of the attackers that are going to attack you are actually nation-state attackers, right? And that is the case, right? We've seen that in every incident we've worked on the last 2 years, which means you have very, very good, intelligent people. And they're businesses. They have psychologists on their team that study your organization. They footprint your organization because you use out of office. Please turn that off. Because they literally can send spam messages to your organization. Now they've footprinted your entire org structure in a matter of minutes because of the replies. You do that for a few months, now you've gotten everybody. And security awareness training, if you look at just even the way our minds work in general, and the way criminals work, if you are aware just of your situation, how many excerpts are there, how far away are you from the emergency exit on a plane, just in everyday life, who's walking into a room, you'll actually reduce 90% of the potential threats you could come into contact with, because when people are doing something wrong or evil, they actually will notice people that are doing something that are situation aware, and they will stand down on purpose. So one of the things that's interesting about security awareness training is it is good because it actually reduces 90% of the noise, in a lot of cases. But it's the 10% of the really smart people, the really smart threat actors, which are 90% of those that are attacking you, that are the real problem. So it's really good to have security awareness training. We don't have an educational set where we take people through. There's a lot of great companies that do that. Hook Security is a great one. I know ATC has a whole list of great awareness training organizations to work with. What we do, though, is we deal in the 10%. And when we're working with organizations, we actually will look and see what departments are situationally failing in very specific ways, and in very small moments of time, not once a year, we'll sit down with that team and we'll say, hey guys, this is what needs to happen. And we meet with our clients every month. Our analyst team meets once a month with them, and our client success teams meet once a month, and we strategize around how do we train awareness inside of that if we see things that need to happen. When you do it that way, things get handled a lot faster, and it becomes much more top of mind for people because it deals with something that pertains to their role, not, did you get some email that is being tricked, right? Or to try to trick you.
Yeah, with that, right? And spam is prevailing out there, right? We talk about infrastructure as a service, security as a service. Most of you are probably aware there is ransomware as a service on the dark web. Mm-hmm. You go out there, you make your investment, you expect a certain ROI on that, and they just send email. So they're highly skilled, they're well paid, and they're good at what they do. Mm-hmm. So we need to be better. Yeah. And you're right. We are the most dangerous people to any company because we're clicking on the email. Yeah. We're hoping there's a last vestibule out there that's going to stop it.
Yeah. 80% of attacks last year came through email.
It's a lot.
80%.
So there's 31 million companies that identify as being mid-market in the United States, 250-ish employees or less. And you see the statistics up here. 43% said that they don't have a cybersecurity plan, and 52% said that they don't have a cybersecurity person on staff, so they're outsourcing. So, if you're in that boat, it's okay, but how do you build a team? How do you build a SOC when that's important? MDR is that managed detection response on top of your endpoint detection response to see those anomalies. So a lot of these organizations do that. Are companies coming to you because they can't build it themselves. They don't have the ability to staff it 24/7. They think it's more expensive, and yet it's usually the fraction of one IT resource, and you get a team of people and the technology and people who know exactly what they do. I flew someone to Russia once, and I said, if the CEO came to you with a blank check, what would you get? And he said, SOC. And I said, well, what's preventing you? He goes, my guys are idiots. He goes, there's 6 of them. I can't staff it 24/7. I don't even know what technology to do, and there's no way, it's way too expensive. There's no way my CEO would do it. Is it cheaper than most people think? And what do you guys do to help protect and add that SOC component? You know, when the statistics say that there's 3.5 million vacant jobs, there's just nobody out there.
I can start. It's typically cheaper. I mean, most things are moving to service, right? Service, you know, focus on your core competency, do what you do best, outsource the rest. Really leverage on that service to provide that value. And a lot of times, cybersecurity, at least at my company, eSentire, it's the cost of one FTE, one full-time employee, perhaps 2, depends the size of your company. And the cool thing about our service is we don't call in sick, we don't talk back, we don't take vacation, and we work 24/7. So that's really tough to find.
Experts too. So you think about what's the threat that gets through? Is it one that everyone's seen? No, it's a brand new one, and the guys look at each other like, you know what to do? Nope.
Yeah, so from our perspective, right, it's cheaper to outsource that aspect. I mean, you look at, you mentioned resource constraints. Go find somebody that's going to come in and build it, and then who's going to manage and maintain it, right? So people, process, technology, and what's the budget? So it's a lot cheaper to have invested in experts out there that are going to protect your environment 24/7, right? We talk about eyes on glass, right? Hands on keyboard type of stuff, right? And typically, a lot of times, it doesn't happen at noon, right? A lot of the bad stuff happens at 3 a.m. when you're scrambling. Well, where's my call down sheet? Where's this? Like, well, my spreadsheet's on my computer that was on the drive, and now that's encrypted.
They know our
Who do I
schedule.
call? Oh my
Sure.
gosh, right? So,
Yeah.
it's a lot better to have, you know, multiple eyes on glass, multiple hands on keyboard to protect the environment.
And it's, you know, things as a service. I mean, you guys have said it really well. And that's one of the things we do, right? Threat blocking as a service, which basically says, let's lower the amount of noise and the stuff that doesn't have to be further investigated, right? So if we have, you know, 1 million connections, is very common for us, even in a small business, but we're blocking 1 million bad things that are all well known. So why have the rest of the services you have or people you have digging through them again when they shouldn't even be there in the first place? So lock that out, block it, and then you're really focused on what's left. And if you can eliminate some of that noise, it just increases the amount of stuff you can get done with as a service model stuff.
And alert fatigue, right?
Alert
can
fatigue,
paralyze
absolutely.
a security team, right?
Yeah.
I've got all these alerts. Where should my priority?
Yep.
Where should it go?
Yeah.
So you need a tool set that's going to take the alerts, normalize them, right?
Yep.
Put in some sort of AI and say, of these 1,000, don't worry about those. Here's the top 10 or top 20.
Yeah, I call it a tsunami of data.
Yeah.
It's really
True.
And we talk about so think about, you know, the holidays just came, and if you have kids and, you know, you're getting constant bombarding by AWS, are you going to stop all your business calls for every time the packages gets delivered? No, but if somebody throws a brick through your window, are you going to stop what you're doing? Yes. So alert versus alarm. Go ahead, Chris.
And it's a macro-micro problem, really, at the end of the day. And the reason it's a macro-micro problem is because you're actually dealing with real people on the other side of this that are doing real cyber warfare against you, right? And when you look at it from macro-micro problem, there's a couple of reasons. One, yes, is it less expensive to have us there than, you know, in the day-to-day operations? Absolutely, because from an FTE standpoint. But then you think about, hey, we're developing technology literally every day, all day long, because we're a cybersecurity company to deal with threats, and we're rapidly deploying that in rapid deployment agile cycles every day, right? So to build that type of infrastructure is not just getting people and bringing in technology. It's about actually having the ability to create your own intel and things like that fight threat actors. We're doing that all the time. So it's way less expensive there, but even if it wasn't, the mission is what matters. And the value is what matters. And the mission is a macro mission, which means you have to fight threat actors that if you have a team inside your team, you'll never know about, right? You know, and the reason you'll never know about it is because your team's only focused on your own microcosm. You're not seeing what your competitors are dealing with or other technologies. And let's face it, we all use the same technology anyway now. You know, in a lot of our environments, you're not seeing those things from a macro level, and that will significantly make you late to the game to fight the threat. But you're also not seeing the micro level, because when threat actors eventually get into your environment, they're creating customized intel for you. So global threat intel you're buying and all that stuff, it doesn't work. You have to deal with what's happening in the action because the threat actor operates in macro, micro, you have to also. And it's really impossible to do that now in today's world with your own teams.
And they're ahead of the game, right? So as soon as a vulnerability, right, is published out there, right, these threat actors are looking at these going, okay, where's my next play at? And they're weaponizing that faster than we can defend against it.
So we have 20 engineers on staff, and you can see what Forbes is saying for trends. There's a lot of interesting trends, but these are the things that we get asked about daily from customers. So if it's not on your roadmap, you know, you can bring in ATC, bring in an engineer, whiteboard your environment, put a roadmap together. One of the other trends, though, we see is IoT. You're getting smart cities, you're getting, you know, smart businesses, and, you know, there's 34 billion devices roughly on net, and 1.5 million of those admitted to being compromised. I say admitted because, let's face it, a lot of them don't. And so if that's happening, how are companies supposed to get their arms around their IP addresses, around everything that's on their network? What do you guys do to help ensure, first on the front end and then maybe on the back end?
Yeah, so one of the things is you have to have rapid analysis of what's happening in the environment. And the way to do that is outside in, right? It's the way Genghis Khan fought warfare. You know, he fought from the outside in until there was literally nothing alive. So, you know, we study warfare all the time to do that. Outside in problem, you really, because then you can really start to condense where threat actors can operate. You have to decide on very key points throughout your infrastructure, that important doorways that threat actors have to get through to do anything malicious in your environment. If they can go through a door that isn't going to cause something malicious, still watch it, but an attack's never going to come from there. From an IoT standpoint, the biggest issue is not the amount of devices in your environment right now. It's the fact that you have providers, like in medical instances, that are having medical devices that are running Windows XP, and you don't know it because they've changed the splash screen. So one of the things that we do is we actually can decapsulate at very low layers, and we can identify user agents on those systems and the technology being used behind those splash screens. So we can go into a hospital and within less than 7 days tell them all the systems that are in there and what operating systems are running, so they can now forensically go hold their providers accountable. And that's the thing. That's the depth you have to do here, because you have to fight warfare against warfare. So,
And, you know, from that is identifying what do I have, right? That's the first and foremost thing is identifying what systems you have, right? Hospitals a great example. Look at manufacturing out there. Take that down into large farms throughout Oklahoma. I was talking to a customer, and they have electronic gates. They have a lot of equipment there. They have everything that can be compromised, or a pivot point into their network. Take it into, beyond manufacturing into healthcare. So understanding what you have, realizing what your exposure point is. You can't patch Windows XP. You can't touch that MRI machine. You're going to void the warranty on it. So now we got to isolate, identify, isolate, and run the business.
Yeah, and everything we're talking about here is defense in depth. It is, literally that. If you look at how we responded to terrorist attacks when they attacked airplanes, right? So there was a lot of things we did. Of course, there's cameras at the airport, there's guards at the airport, there's all sorts of, there's TSA, there's all this stuff. We also established a no-fly list. That's actually what I represent, right? So it says, hey, we have known bad guys, known terrorists. It doesn't matter what they have in their bag today. As you just said, they're coming at it with a plastic gun, right? They're going to make it through the X-ray machine. We don't want them in the airport, so we put them on a no-fly list, right? So, but if you don't do all of that, you're going to miss. And you have to do every step along the way to make it happen.
And if you isolate, like to that point,
exactly.
If you do isolate, you still have to do detection inside that isolated network.
Yep.
So like that's called an air-gapped infrastructure. I know we can do it. I think a couple of you guys can as well. But you have to do detection inside air-gapped environments, especially if you're a bank or a manufacturing facility. Like for some SCADA systems and IoT devices, you literally could just do a ping scan, and you can literally take down an entire warehouse just because they're so sensitive. So you have to isolate those systems, but be able to do detection in them and get that information out without compromising the isolated network. Pretty difficult to do, right?
Yeah, and with that, you're right. The importance of that is, I've talked to customers, they said, well, yes, we isolated, we put a firewall there. Okay, what else are you doing besides that? Well, it's segmented. Okay, there's a lot more detail. What are the other exposures you have just because it's isolated, right?
Yeah.
If you go look at Stuxnet back in with Israel and Iran and the U.S., right?
Yeah.
That
We may have killed a centrifuge
yeah.
in a isolated network.
That was an air gap network to build centrifuges, right? To build, bombs. And yet it was compromised. So everything's not as air gapped as you think. So defense in depth. Yeah.
So you guys see I'm very into statistics. I went to school to be a pastor, so I'm also into storytelling. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about stories. So first off, Caesar's Palace was compromised. I don't know if anybody is aware of that, but they got compromised through their fish tank. So think about that. Their aquarium brought them down. Uber got compromised by somebody calling into support over and over, claimed to be an employee. Eventually, they all said, no, we won't reset your password. No. Sure, I will help you, absolutely. Got through the multi-factor authentication. The CISO, the chief security officer, tried to hide it. Guess where he is at now? Prison. They're looking at the CFO and the CEO. So those types of things. What I want each of you to do, because we got 6 minutes until everyone looks a little dehydrated in here, so we have some cocktails coming, but tell a story. What is something that you got brought, either an industry or a company brought you something unique, and what did you guys do to help fix that?
I'll kick it off. So this past January and February, we had 6 legal firms that were attacked that we provide our MDR service for. And the adversary in this case, what they did is they compromised websites that they would go to. They call them watering holes. So these legal firms go to these sites to get legal documents and do different work. And that's what the adversaries do. They look at specific firms, they're targeting them. Well, where do these firms go to? Who do they interact with on a regular basis? So they compromise those sites based on vulnerabilities, and then they plant stuff there, so when they go there, they get infected. And stuff gets downloaded, and that's where we pick up the telltale signs. So it's just interesting, our adversaries will profile you, and it's not if, it's when, they're gonna attack you. So you got to be prepared.
Yeah, the story I would tell is we have a now customer who was a customer we were talking to. They had 3,000 title company offices, all with part-time employees. They're not doing real estate closings every day, so they didn't really see the need to do too much cybersecurity. So what happened is folks showed up to do a real estate closing, and the money disappeared. Right, all of it, $300,000. It was like a condo or something. But anyway, $300,000 disappeared like that, right? And nobody knew where the money went. It just was gone. Doing forensics, it turned out somebody had compromised the scanner in the real estate closing office. And between scanning the documents and the document and getting put into the system for the money to be transferred, the routing numbers got changed and the money went offshore. And they're gone. And so what we came in, one of the things we do is a threat risk assessment. We show people that, we block IPs, that's what we do. But they went and we took that period of time and they said, hey, would you have caught this? And we showed them very specifically, yes, that specific threat actor showed up in our database 3 weeks before this happened. We would have just simply blocked that from happening. He wouldn't have been there compromising that scanner and the money would have disappeared. Anyway, we now have a 3,000 site real estate.
That's amazing. For the record, you cannot get a condo in California for $300,000.
No, it wasn't in California. It was in Oklahoma. So actually, it might have been a giant estate actually in Oklahoma. So.
Yeah, I guess for stories from the cyber world. So, mine's a little bit different. That we have a lot to talk about from that, but a little bit different. A chemical company came to us and said, we're short-staffed, we're growing. We want to grow to $1 billion. We have an acquisition plan from where we are today, knowing how to get there. I have a short IT staff. How can you help? Virtual CISO services, solution architect to help implement. They were a customer that didn't have air gaps between their manufacturing, right, and their environment. We helped with that. But through this process, the VP of technology ended up Googling the picture of his CEO, and out popped a website that they scraped from their website, and they're just misspells, right? Typo squatting, boom, right? And he says, wow, right? So we said, well, we can help with that. I said, no, I got it right. Took it down, called the appropriate authorities, took it down. As soon as it got took down, popped back up. right? Now he's playing whack-a-mole trying to get these down, right? So we enlisted one of our partners who does dark web security. We went out there and they actually went through and found this says, hey, here are the credentials that have been stolen from your environment. And this is probably in your environment today, but we need to figure this out. So now you go into forensics. Are they in the network? Now we're looking at additional dark site monitoring. So it's a whole, you don't know when they're in there. I think the average is 6 months. They'll be in your environment before you even know.
That's amazing. Chris, we don't have enough time for you. Just kidding.
Got 36 seconds now. We get called in incidents all the time, not for our clients, but we also provide incident response for companies that are not our clients. When you do cybersecurity really well for your clients, you really can do the same exact thing inside of an incident because it's all about rapid detection. Because even when you start with a new client or even existing one, you have to constantly know rapidly what's going on at all times inside the infrastructure. In this case, it was July 5th last year. We got a phone call from one of our partners on the West Coast. One of their clients had called them because they had a major incident. We got on the phone with them, found out that this specific organization could have affected all of your lives. They make a single part that goes in another part that goes in everything that you guys use. It would have shut down an entire global industry. What happened to them on July 5th is a printer printed out that, hey, you've been encrypted, call this, send an email to this email address. And it just went on the one printer. No one saw it, but what they did see is that on most of their systems, they couldn't actually get into their systems. And what had happened, the threat actor did, was they came into their infrastructure and then used BitLocker, which is a common tool that's built into Microsoft. A lot of threat actors are using it now because ransomware detection doesn't see it, because it's not real ransomware. It's literally built in. It's something they used already. What the threat actor did was just change their password for BitLocker and then redeployed it out through their group policy, and it shut down all of their systems. They had a few systems that were outside of that policy in their domain controller, and those systems didn't get encrypted. Net, kind of TLDR on it was we came in, deployed. We were there deployed within 24 hours, we do rapid same-day deployment for our services out to organizations that are under incident. That normally takes about 6 to 8 weeks for most cyber companies to show up. We're there in 24 hours. We saw the threat within 4 hours. The threat was actually still hanging out there because what they were really after was the intellectual property and to shut down the manufacturing infrastructure. We work a lot with the FBI because we have forensic rapid data information, and that actually led to indictments, which is pretty rare in this industry. But they were down a total. They had reached out to us after a few days. We were there. They reached out to us. It happened on the 5th. They reached out to us on the 6th, actually. But we had them back up and running within 4 days. They did not miss a shipment, and it was all good. And they're running today. Now they're a long-term client of ours, but it was pretty interesting. Even post that, though, we extended out across the world to their global sites, and the threat actor had embedded themselves in those sites as well. So they just wait. Ransomware is usually a diversion for something they really are after in the first place. So, sorry.
So hopefully this was beneficial for everybody. Everybody's going to be around having a couple drinks after this. So give it up for the panel. Thank you so much. Good job.
Thank you.
Wait.